Google is firing at its competitors, turning the smartphone patent battle into a war of words. Google's chief legal officer, David Drummond, said in a blog post today, the success of Android operating system has created a hostile, organized campaign by Microsoft, Oracle, Apple, and other companies waged through patents. Oracle is suing Google over claims Android infringes on Java patents. Microsoft and Apple recently banded together to buy more than 6,000 Nortel Networks patents, outbidding Google. Drummond says they did it just so Google couldn't get them. Writing, Microsoft and Apple have been at each other's throats, so when they get into bed together, you have to start wondering what's going on. No comment so far from Apple, Oracle, or Microsoft, but competitors have said Google's problem is simply that Android came to the market late and it's playing catch-up. That said, Google seems to be getting more aggressive when it comes to intellectual property, recently acquiring patents from IBM and hiring a former Federal Trade Commission official to its legal team. Google is one of many companies now looking to buy the patent portfolio from a company called InterDigital. Let's head out to the newsroom where our Cory Johnson has more on tonight's drill down. Cory?
Yeah, Emily, you know, this new war for patents shows you that the value of patents is so important, and you can really see it if you look at the stock chart of InterDigital. Now, this is a company that has gone through all kinds of things in the last year. InterDigital has. It lost a big lawsuit. They missed quarterly earnings estimates. They finally put themselves up for sale, and you see the stock go crazy. Today, Samsung expressing some interest. But the stock chart, of course, is not the asset here. This is patent number 7,117,004. It's one of the two patents that was the basis of a long-running InterDigital lawsuit against Nokia. Now, had this lawsuit gone InterDigital's way, well, the analysts thought that this thing was going to be worth as much as $410 million. Now, they didn't win the Nokia suit, but it just shows you that just a couple of patents, if they can be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, imagine the value of hordes of those patents. So if you look across the landscape of big patent holders, what you see is that companies like Oracle and InterDigital and Google stack up quite differently. Oracle with 20,000 patents, InterDigital with 1,300. Google has just 689 patents. Comparatively, not a lot, although clearly their inventions rely on the application of these patents to hold on to what they get. Now InterDigital is a very interesting company because it's not someone who goes out and gathers these patents and starts suing, known in the business as a patent troll. Rather, this is a company focused on creating innovation. They've got about 300 employees, 60% of them are engineers. 40% of those engineers are actually PhDs. So you've got an enormous number of PhDs at the company. You've got an enormous number of engineers who are trying to invent stuff, create things of value, and then go into the marketplace and get those licenses into the universe so that customers are the companies that actually make stuff with their inventions. Emily?
It's definitely a bit of a complicated process there. Thanks for that, Cory. Now let's bring in the man who wrote the book on Google. Stephen Levy's In the Plex is one of the definitive books on the search giant. Steve, this is getting ugly pretty quickly. Google now pointing fingers at specific companies. Why such strong words today from David Drummond?
Well, I think it's fascinating. And clearly, the patent system is broken to a certain degree. And they say in the Constitution, the point of these patents is to encourage innovation, the progressive arts. But when you say patent to anyone in Silicon Valley, they just groan because they think the patents are their enemies, and they stop innovation. That said, this really is a legal issue. This is going to be fought out in the courts, not in public opinion. And I think it's a little alarming, or should be alarming, to Google fans and to Android fans, that Google now is taking to the blogs to fight the battle there. The question is, what's that about? And you worry. It shows how worried Google really is that they're launching, not with lawyers, though they're doing that too, but with blog items against their competitors.
And last week, we did interview Google General Counsel Kent Walker on all of this smartphone litigation. Stephen, take a listen to what he had to say.
This explosion of bad software patent litigation is a real drag on innovation. It's slowing products from coming to market. It's keeping consumers from having the products they want. It's cutting spending on R&D and jobs, so it's hurting the economy and the industry. And it's really a problem for the small guys.
That said, Stephen, competitors say Android can't just get away with infringing on other patents because it came to the market late. What's your take on all of this?
Well, basically, you can't build a smartphone without using a host of patents that belong to various parties there. And what these companies want to do is they want to get patents not necessarily to sue other people, but to protect themselves. Now, what happened with this previous consortium is that there were these patents up that Google actually put into play by a bid, but all their enemies ganged up against it. And when you've got Apple and Microsoft on the same team ganging up against someone else, you have to wonder, why are they buying these patents together? And the Justice Department obviously has an interest in this, and they're looking at this. Ultimately, we have to look to patent reform to solve these problems, because we buried ourselves into a hole here that we need new laws to get out of it. But the worry is that who's going to tell the legislators what's best? It'll probably be people who fund the legislators. So we've got a big problem here, and I think Google knows it, and this is almost a Hail Mary pass to take it to the public.
But patent reform aside, could it come down to, as the law stands now, Google having to pay royalties on every single Android phone?
Well, that's possible. You know, the problem is, what are Google's patents? Google has patents in other areas. They just bought a bunch of patents from IBM, and maybe they could open up a new front. And if Microsoft is saying, now we own some of these patents that you have to pay royalties for Android, they could say, well, now we have these patents for the way you handle information on the internet that you use in Bing, and we're going against you. It gets messy.
Now, this patent offensive just seems to be another one of the major changes that's been implemented since Larry Page came back to the helm. In addition to big management changes, Google Plus rolling out. If you had to give Larry a grade, Stephen, how good do you think he's doing?
Well, you know, you have to ultimately see that the success of the products that he's launched or is fortifying here. But I'd give him a pretty good grade, probably a B+. He's really done well in re-energizing Google, in working hard on the things that you know that he cares a lot about. One of them is making Google more nimble, making Google act like a smaller company, even though it's a giant company. And he's appointed a group of lieutenants that are very technical-minded, they're product-oriented. That's his team to take into the future. And you see other things of his footprints. For instance, Google recently introduced this thing to allow Google to host their web pages and make them run faster. And speed is an obsession with Larry. He wants the web to run faster, and particularly everything Google to run faster. So I think you could see that's something that Larry was interested in.
B+, not a bad grade. I'm curious to know, Stephen, what you think of Google Plus. I've seen you on there. How do you think it's going so far?
Well, I think it's actually exceeded their wildest expectations. I had been watching the development of Google Plus because when I was researching my book in the Plex, that was one of the products they let me into early and saw the development. I couldn't write about it in the book because it was slow out of the gate. My book came out before the product did, but I know that they were bracing themselves for a somewhat skeptical reaction because Google had failed pretty much in any social product they had before. So they thought that people might say, well, it's too little too late, and Google would have to prove itself after a long time. But what happened was people welcomed it. I think it shows that, first of all, they did some good thinking behind the product. They have a feature called Circles, which handles privacy of what you share better than Facebook had. But I think people are looking a little skeptically at Facebook now. They say, well, we don't want all our information to be owned by Facebook, and we welcome another competitor, even if it's a big company like Google.
So that said, Stephen, quickly, do you think Google Plus could be a legitimate competitor to Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn?
I think it's got a shot at being part of the ecosystem. It's not really a Facebook killer. Facebook's a very smart company. It's not going to give up as easily as MySpace did and get distracted. But what Google really wants is not to kill off Facebook, but to be part of the social ecosystem, maybe enough so that all these people can get together, all these companies can get together and share our information when we want them to share it. It really is our information that we post socially. And as someone who shares things on the internet, if I want it to be shared with Twitter, with Facebook, with all the services that I'm a member of, it should be my choice and not the company's choice to keep these things bottled up.
We shall see if Google Plus indeed becomes part of the social networking ecosystem. Stephen Levy, author of In the Plex, said thank you so much for joining us.